Everybody, we're going to, stop our zero in on our focus on Auburn and just look at the whole SEC here. And joining me, two friends of mine, two former colleagues of mine over at Last Word of College Football. Glad to talk to these guys. Greg McMichael, he covers Georgia for Last Word of College Football, and also Rob Williams. They are the host of SEC Sunday Nights. You can check it out on YouTube, all over the place, where you can see video. And guys, I appreciate you coming on the show to look at Week 1 in the SEC.
Yeah, absolutely. I paused because I always talk first, and so I was going to pass the mic to Craig and let him have a moment. But yeah, we're excited to be here. There's so much to talk about in the SEC at all times. We know it's the greatest conference in all of sports, and that's not just a college football thing. The tradition that exists in the SEC outweighs everything else, everywhere else across the world, and so we are privileged to be able to talk about it each and every week at 8 o'clock on the Chief Sports Network.
Yeah, you guys talk about the show a little bit. I know y'all had the show. It just means more. Was it? It just means more coffee, or it just means more and coffee.
Football. So the first edition was it just means more football and coffee. And
Okay.
Rob and I went 65 episodes for that one, and went almost every single week. There were a handful of times where we went actually twice a week, and really were able to kind of stretch out. I was covering Georgia, Rob was covering South Carolina, and we said, hey, you know what? We want to cover the rest of the SEC. And we both loved coffee. We're both young dads, so we usually, when we first started out, we was over usually a cup of coffee, whether it be Maxwell House or something a little more foo and fancy if it was me. But yeah, we did that over 65 episodes, and then on July 6th, we premiered on the Chief Sports Network. So we're both on the Chief Sports app, and then we're on YouTube, and then we also stream live on Twitter and a number of feeds there. So it has been a great opportunity to expand beyond Georgia and South Carolina to talk about the entire SEC.
Yeah, you can check out at SEC Sunday Night on X, and that's going to be one way to find us. But you can also check out Chief Sports South Carolina on YouTube, and you'll be able to find the YouTube channel, and that's going to have a lot of shows for you available. Obviously, there's a handful of shows that are South Carolina related. But in addition to that, you have us, and then you also have JC and Morgan, which is JC Sherbert of 24/7 Sports, and Mike Morgan of the SEC Network, that do a national show there as well, and have incredible guests on a weekly basis. And we're having a great time and enjoying it. Chief Sports is a great home for us, and we're excited to be there.
Yeah, I've listened to the JC and Morgan before. Those guys do a great job with their show. And you're right, big time guests. I feel like I see Tom Luganville and Josh Pate on there all the time
Yeah.
when they're on their shows, among others, their guests. And you guys have had some great guests on too as well. Looking at Week 1, it was a very interesting week because we had a lot of marquee games. And we also had a lot of what we're used to seeing in Week 1 with some of the big dogs playing teams they should easily defeat. I guess I'll start with you on this one, Craig. What was something that stood out to you the most, SEC Week 1?
SEC Week 1 was my boy Arch, who I've been politicking for all year, looked like a kid who was starting for the first time on the road in a hostile environment. I don't know how many passes he underthrew. I don't think he completed a pass of more than 10 yards through the air until late in the second half. It was just disappointing, to be honest. I think when we look at it, Texas and Alabama were predicted to be one of the top two teams in the SEC, and they both, I think, failed to show up. The Texas defense looked fantastic, but the Steve Sarkisian offense, who I have politicked and said many great things about, just was a no-show. And to be quite honest, that is the most disappointing thing. If you look back to the 2024 season, how many of us were upset that Indiana got picked over Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina? Well, part of the reason is because of those two big losses. The SEC needs to win those big games. Yeah, the Clemson win was nice for LSU. South Carolina taking care of Virginia Tech. Tennessee taking care of
Syracuse.
Syracuse. Thank you. But it just wasn't good enough. And to be quite honest, it was a disappointment because I was really hoping for the SEC to really make that statement, and they just didn't do it.
How about you, Rob?
Overall, I think that Alabama probably stands out the most to me, if we're being honest. And we're on an Auburn podcast, and so everybody's going to revel in the fact that the Tide are floundering, trying to figure things out. I had a lot of concerns about Ty Simpson going into this game. I did believe they would have enough talent elsewhere to get it done, and I've been an advocate for Kalen DeBoer all along from the point of hiring, and I thought, he had a real chance to buck the trend of the guy that follows the guy. But I think that as it stands right now, we're landing squarely into that territory of anybody who follows someone who's considered great always pretty much crashes and burns because the standard is too high for even really, really good and successful coaches to hit the bar. And so that's probably the one that sticks out the most to me. I was in Atlanta for both games in Mercedes-Benz, both the Tennessee-Syracuse game, and Tennessee looks really good. I'm going to be honest. Like, the way that the defenders were able to press up against Syracuse wide receivers, I get it that we're talking about Syracuse, but I don't think that Fran Brown is going out there with a team that is wholly unprepared to play football. I mean, I have a lot of confidence and trust in him. And so the way that Tennessee's defense played, I think, is a big deal. The running backs look great in that room. And then Joey Aguilar is head and shoulders an upgrade over Nico. And so his ability to be accurate with the football from the time he stepped on the field in warmups to playing the game, the bomb to Brace Staley was incredible. He was really accurate, and when he needed to take off, he got it done on the ground as well. So he just seemed kind of cool and calm and under control. And then South Carolina looked a little sloppy on the line of scrimmage, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Norris Sellers is a superhero, and so his ability to kind of make things happen when it breaks down is incredible. And there's a handful of plays where you saw it happen. I don't know that Virginia Tech. Time will tell how quality of an opponent that is. I'm not really high on it right now. But at the same time, it's an opening game, and Shane Beamer's teams have been not so great in opening games and then gotten stronger and stronger as the year goes on. So I would expect South Carolina to continue to build, and we'll see their best football in November. That's kind of been the trend under Beamer. LSU stands out a lot to me. I picked them to win the SEC. So that's all I'll say about that one. I'll stand on the fact that I look right after week one.
All right, we'll start over. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so I'm glad you brought up Joey Aguilar because I remember watching him at Appalachian State. He was great there. Then going to UCLA, and basically we got our first official trade in the transfer portal era. Nico goes to UCLA. He goes to Tennessee. He did the one thing that Nico did not do consistently last year, and that is complete the deep ball. I mean, Nico was not good at that. I mean, Tennessee's had a bad run since Hendon Hooker. Milton couldn't hit, he could throw it out of the stadium, but he couldn't hit a deep ball. And they have Joey Aguilar. I'm kind of now looking at that combined with Tennessee's going to be good defensively. And now with how they've been doing with the run game, which I think is something people do not talk a lot about with Josh Heupel. I think Tennessee is now kind of could be one of those under the radar SEC teams that I don't think we've talked a lot about going into this season. But if Aguilar is going to hit that deep ball on a consistent basis, this Tennessee offense, this Tennessee team, could really take it to another level.
Well, I think if you look at it, though, we were right to be questioning Tennessee coming in. The last time they were on the field, they were embarrassed in Columbus. Mm-hmm. You had the Nico drama, and then you had another defensive back who was maybe being held out, maybe not. So I think it was right to have a lot of questions going into Tennessee. But I think, you bring up a good point. We'd like to talk about Josh Heupel. We like to talk about the offense. You think even back to last year, their calling card has been the defense. Their defense has been legit and has been very stout. Heupel did a great job last year of mixing in the running game with that as well. And now if Aguilar can hit the deep ball, that's the key to the veer and shoot. If you can hit that deep ball a little bit, you soften up that coverage, then they're going to be able to pop some of those runs in there. So I think Tennessee, if you look at their schedule too, it is not the toughest. They've got a pretty decent slate. I think I went back and I think I had them at 6-6 this year because of the questions. Mm-hmm. But given what they did against Syracuse, Syracuse, I think, is going to be a upper echelon ACC team. That doesn't mean a whole hell of a lot because it is the ACC, but I do think Fran Brown does have something there.
I'll add to that, too, that I think that in addition to the deep ball, just accuracy in general is something they've missed since Hendon Hooker. If you can complete balls in this Josh Heupel offense, then it keeps it moving, and that's what it's predicated on. Is that we need to continue to move down the field, and the fact that they're going to go fast, and there's a continuation of things. But when you throw incomplete passes on a regular basis in this offense, it breaks down. And so I think that not only his ability to hit the deep ball, but his willingness to take the check down as well when it's there is a big piece of success for Joey Aguilar.
Yeah, y'all both mentioned Alabama. And look, I went into the year thinking, okay, this is a team. If Tyson, it's kind of what I said off air about Auburn the last 2 years with you guys talking about if the quarterback's good, they should be such and such. I was looking at this team, offensive line. I mean, we see Proctor. They got guys that the NFL scouts love. The receivers are there. Running backs are talented, inexperienced, but talented. They're loaded on defense. This team had everything on paper to be a championship, not just an SEC championship caliber team, but a national championship caliber team. But what we saw Saturday against Florida State, look, Gus Malzahn knows how to beat Alabama. We all know that. I see a team that looks uninspired. I mean, even DeBoer looks uninspired on the sideline. Look, I'm not saying he's got to act like Nick Saban on the sideline, but show a little intensity and some passion. And to me, Alabama just didn't act like a team that did they know there was a game being played Saturday? I mean, just there was not that intensity that we're used to seeing with Alabama when Nick Saban was on the sideline.
Well, speaking of which, your Auburn fans might be buying a Castellanos t-shirt. I guess he's selling t-shirts now for $35 that says Nick isn't coming to save you. Like as a former coach, now current athletic director, you always like to find the chip to, figure out when you're playing the other team. When you're Alabama, there's not often time that you're going to get a chip. But you have the Florida State quarterback talking trash about your team and talking about how the defense he's playing every day in practice is going to be better and that Nick Saban isn't coming to save you. And you come and you get punched in the face time and again. I don't know what this Alabama is. And I think the narrative was, oh, well, the offense is going to be fine because Grubb's coming back. And I saw no difference. It didn't matter if it was Jalen Milroe. It didn't matter if it was Ty Simpson there. I think the uninspired is a great one, but there's not that passion. There's not that energy. And you're trying to sit there thinking about going from Alabama could be 11-1 to 10-2 to now are they going to be 6-6 because there's going to be some teams. Alabama used to win the game, most of those games, the moment they walked out on the field because they won the psychological game, and that was important. Well, those 4 losses in 14 games against 8 unranked opponents, that psychological advantage is gone now for Kalen DeBoer.
Not only is it gone, but it's flipped in the other direction. And so now you're psyched out in terms of there's pressure. And what happens if we don't go out there and play well? What happens if we get punched in the mouth? And I don't know that when you remove that confidence, you start to question things. You start to play slower. You start to overthink. And I think that's not only happening with Alabama players on the field, but it's, again, Craig, to your point, happening with Kalen DeBoer as well, where we may start to see him overthink some decisions. And ultimately, I said months ago, I think that Keelan Russell starts at quarterback by the middle of the season. That might happen sooner rather than later for Alabama.
Yep.
You kind of see, and a lot of Alabama fans, there's a lot of them that were ready for Jalen Milroe to be gone. And he could have came back, but they were ready for him to be gone. And I look at it now like how often did he bail them out now last year? Now kind of looking back at it, because I was kind of one of those people, I mean, I'm an Auburn guy, I cover Auburn, but I still look and say, man, he just don't have it as a passer, but he's just his athletic ability. He could, make the big plays for them to get them out of those jams. And, also, guys, look at it last year, they struggled on the road. Losses at Vanderbilt. And now they got to go to – there's another one. When they went on the road, and we saw it in Tallahassee, they were not the same team. And this year, look, on the 27th, they've got to go to Athens. They go to Missouri. They go to South Carolina. And I have said this plenty of times. Columbia, South Carolina is one of the most underrated venues to go on the road to. That is going to be tough. Look, South Carolina can be tough to play against at home when they're not good. but this is a really good football team they have. Oh, and by the way, end of the year, you go to Jordan-Hare Stadium. Those are 4 tough matchups. Missouri may be a little iffy, but we'll see how that team turns out.
Missouri, though, the last few years under Drink, that has become a very challenging place. You know, a few years ago, Georgia had to basically gut out a 4-quarter win in order to play there. And like you said, they're just not showing up now.
I don't think it's environmental even in Missouri, as much as it is like it goes back to the psychological thing. I think their team just plays better there. I'm not ready to give them credit to say that they have a hostile environment, or that they've done anything.
You're never going to give the other team in Columbia any credit though whatsoever.
I mean,
that other Columbia.
I just don't know how many teams in the SEC are really fans of the Tigers from Como, but that's not the argument we're here to make.
But there's a psychological advantage there. If I'm going in there thinking I'm going to come in and I'm going to kick your ass, or I think
that's what everybody thinks.
Right.
I think that's what everybody thinks is we're going to go in here and cakewalk this because this place sucks. Like there's no environment here. There's no advantage. These fans don't really care. Like it's not going to be loud. But Drink, to his credit, has his team ready to go.
100%.
So we're going to pull the curtain back a little bit. So when I was still with last Oregon College football, when I took the role on Auburn Wire, I switched teams. So I did write about Alabama before I left, but I did for a little bit write about the Texas Longhorns. And I remember, Craig, you were very excited for me when I got that assignment because of Arch. I know you're a big Arch guy. Yep. And obviously, I think Saturday, there was a lot of people out there. I think they expected him to look like Peyton and Eli, like they were in the NFL. And I think he did make some good throws, but obviously there were some fundamental things going on. I'll say this on that last drive they had, that pass to the tight end between the 2 DBs, that was a beautiful pass.
Yep.
But then a few plays later, he's
playing with tempo there, though. He's playing with those last couple of drives, he's playing with tempo, and that's the thing is both Ryan Day and Steve Sarkisian basically had a 1995 Big Ten West playbook where we're just going to kind of like run the ball. It was a boring playbook. It was not very imaginative. We're not playing fast. And to be honest, like, you heard Sark say something at halftime, like they wanted to run Arch a little bit because Arch doesn't wake up until he got hit. Whatever that was. But it was disappointing because Arch did show it. He played against UTSA last year, and he played against Mississippi State. I'm not saying either one of those two teams are on the same stratosphere as Ohio State. Ohio State is probably one of the best defenses out there. But some of those passes, he did not have pressure in his face. He just flat out missed his receivers. And with the work that he has put in and the expectation that we have put on them, myself included, you should be hitting those passes. What he showed at the very end of that game, that should have happened. You have the ball twice inside Ohio State's 10-yard line, and you come away with no points. That's just unacceptable. And that's it on Arch. But more importantly, it's on Steve Sarkisian. Steve Sarkisian has one of the most efficient offenses, but he has a problem when he gets inside the 20-yard line. I fought Memphis Spence on that tooth and nail when he was on our show a few weeks ago, and I'm like, I believe in Steve. Well, it just showed I need to go back to school because the professor was right. I told Memphis that this weekend.
How much does it say about their confidence in their quarterbacks, though? You talk about their boring playbook. They come in and want to establish the run. It tells us about both teams that, like, we need to fill this out. We don't really know what these guys are going to do, whether it was Julian Sayin or Arch Manning. And to your point about the goal line, the second time they got stopped on the goal line, the third down play was a read on Arch's part to give it to the back or pull it. And I mean, I get it. Like, guys are going to make wrong reads, but to your point, Craig, not only do you need to be able to make the read in the passing game and deliver an accurate ball, but on that third down play, the end crashed so hard. And if Arch pulls it, he can walk in like he's walking an old lady across the street, and he scores a touchdown because they're on the half-yard line.
Yep.
And he gave it to the back, and he got stuffed. So those are kind of simple. Like, you read one player, man. I mean, I don't know what to tell you on that type of ball, but I do think that Texas is going to be fine. It's week 1, everybody's overreacting because that's what we do after week 1. But let us, as the quote unquote media, step back and have a little bit of a reality check here. They're going to be okay. Their defense is, dare I say, elite. I still think it's a top 5 defense in the country. I don't think that Arch Manning gets worse by any stretch. And as he gains experience, Steve Sarkisian is theoretically going to let him open it up a little more. And I think that, to your point, Craig, run him early, get him hit, and then uncork it and let this man throw the ball, and let's see where it goes. I think Texas will be fine. Are they a national championship contender, like we said? To be determined. The SEC is wide open for what it's worth, and there's a lot of teams we can make an argument for today. But Texas is definitely still in that mix.
Yeah, and you look at their schedule for the next 3 weeks. San Jose State at home, which is the ABC 11 o'clock game on Saturday. That shows you the dip we've had in games for this week. Then he play UTEP and then Sam Houston before they will play the Florida Gators, who and I think Florida is another one we don't really know what they are. So we'll see where we're at when we get to that game. I mean, they may have a game on their hand with South Florida this weekend.
I think that one's going to be sneaky because you look at what South Florida did to Boise State. Look out, Billy. And you know, everyone's looking ahead. They've got Miami coming up. They've got Texas coming up. They got Texas A&M. They got LSU all coming up. South Florida is not going to be a cakewalk this week. I think that one is going to be dangerous. And let's be honest, there have been times, sorry, Rob, but Billy has made some mistakes coaching and has cost the Florida Gators some games. You don't want to do that now because you're going to set yourself up for some heartache come September and October.
Don't sorry Rob me like I had confidence in him. Get out of here.
Rob for Phillip's listeners is a big Billy Napier guy. He's got his
Stop it. That is not true whatsoever. That is not true whatsoever. In fact, I put all of their success on DJ Lagway last year until the Netflix series came out, and then I realized I was wrong about that. I think that Billy Napier did actually rally the troops. But no, I made an argument for Hugh Freeze and for Billy Napier that I think that Auburn and Florida administrations have both had too quick of a trigger. And when you hit the reset button that quickly over and over and over again, sometimes you dig a hole that is difficult to climb out of and is going to take 4 or 5 seasons, even in the transfer portal era, to build back to the prominent power that both of those schools want to be. And so I just made an argument like, hey, let's give these guys a little time to breathe and build something, because it is still the SEC and you still have injuries, you still have bad breaks, you still have difficult schedules year in and year out. And so if we want success, maybe we need to wait and see what's going to happen. And I think that's kind of the route Florida decided to go last year with Billy Napier.
So we're going to talk about the Auburn Tigers to close up. I want to talk about the other Tigers, the LSU Tigers, beating Clemson 17-10. I think a lot of people probably figure, okay, you got 2 future right now. Way mocks are looking future NFL first-round draft pick quarterbacks. You know, Garrett Nussmeier, and then you got Cade Klubnik on the other side. This was a defensive game. And I think we could see where LSU took the Bryce Underwood money that they didn't have to spend, and they put it all on that defense, because that's really been the weakness of Brian Kelly's teams at LSU, has been the defense and not closing games. They've got a defense that appears. They closed out the game. I know, Rob, you said they're your pick to win the SEC, and now we see how Texas is. We see where Alabama's at. Right now, at least, if we're, overreacting to week 1, LSU should be, along with Georgia, who I think Georgia has a chip on their shoulder. You talked about that earlier, Craig. I think this is a team that was picked second in the SEC. They were number 5 in the first polls, but they are absolutely not being talked about.
Nope.
This team,
Kirby
as they
loves
have
it
been.
too.
So
Kirby
I'm right
loves
now.
It.
Oh, I know. Well, he probably thinks he's probably telling the team they were picked to go 10-2-10 this year, and then when no one else did that, I'm just saying. But anyways, those 2 right now, as we come out of week 1, look like to me they should be the favorite. What you guys think?
I think I'm going to defer to my boy Rob because he is Mr. Nuss and Mr. LSU. But if I'm looking at Georgia, 2 big things that I saw. Yes, they played Marshall, but they took care of business. They did exactly what you're supposed to do against Marshall. First and foremost, from an offensive perspective, Gunnar Stockton is going to have a mobile threat. It is something that Carson Beck lacked the last 2 years. Carson Beck could chuck the ball all over the yard, but when it came to actually running, that was not his game. So Gunnar Stockton being a part of that, he had 2 rushing touchdowns. He also threw 2 in the air. First time in 80 years we've had a Georgia Bulldog do that. So I think that was impressive. You also saw Zachariah Branch have a pretty nice game as well. So that also helped. We one thing that you didn't see a lot on Saturday was Georgia receivers dropping the ball. So I think that's already an improvement. But I think more importantly from a Georgia perspective is you look at the Georgia defense. If you look at the first 7 drives for the first 3 quarters, 5 of them were 3 and outs. And for the most part, Marshall did not gain more than 5 yards on those possessions. To me, that's a classic mean Georgia defense. I'm not saying Marshall is great. I'm not saying Marshall is anywhere near what a Clemson was or what Ohio State was. But when you play a lower team like that, you are playing to the expectation. And, so to me, that was the most exciting. We're still not going to see much from Georgia this week. They got little old Austin Peay before they travel north to Knoxville. So, but I'm going to be right there. The SEC Sunday Night Twitter page, I don't know if it was Rob or who it was, actually tweeted out that Georgia it was going to be your SEC champion. So I don't know.
It was not me. It was not me. In fact, I still stand by the fact that I picked LSU in April. I picked LSU last week, and I'm definitely picking LSU today to win the SEC, right? I look super right after week 1 if we're going to go in terms of week 1 overreactions that I've said all along that they added pieces to the defense. Blake Baker is a phenomenal coordinator. We saw what he did at Missouri, of all places. He's a less with more type of guy. And even last year, I feel like the cupboard was kind of bare for him, and they still, although got gashed in a few instances, were serviceable.
Yep.
So this year, you add pieces to that, and you're going to see this defense take another step. I still don't know that I think it's the elite LSU defenses of old, but they held Clemson down pretty good. So, I mean, at home too, like I still have, again, just like Texas, Clemson's going to be fine. Okay. My South Carolina brethren do not like to hear me say that. They're going to be just fine. Okay. They're in the ACC. K. Klubnik is my Heisman Trophy pick preseason. I still think that he's going to do incredible numbers with the receivers that he's got and the schedule that they have. And so that win's going to look really good, I think, for LSU by the time college football playoff selection comes around. But I have all the confidence in the world in Nuss. I think that he did clean things up. I think that he looked a little less gunslinger-esque than he has in the past, which is the only issue that we have with him, right, is that he sometimes doesn't take care of the ball. You added speed and weapons as if we needed to do that in Baton Rouge. And so he just kind of has a plethora of toys to play with. Barry and Brown looked phenomenal. And so I think they're going to, even though this turned into a defensive matchup, I think that they're going to put up a fair amount of points. And if their defense can hold teams to, 21, this LSU team is going to be a force to be reckoned with.
I'll tell you what stood out to me with that game. They only run for 108 yards, but they ran it 31 times. They committed to running the football. Last year, LSU didn't do that. It was the air show with LSU last year. They were one-dimensional. Everything got put on Garrett Nussmeier and the receivers. Just the attempt to run the ball consistently gives the defense something to think about with that. So if they can do that, and especially that yardage goes up against some of these other opponents, adding just an average run game with what they're going to be able to do passing the ball, that offense could take another step up.
That run game goes hand in hand with the defense, right? Because the LSU defense was able to hold Clemson at bay, and so you didn't have to get into a track meet where you're throwing the ball around. And because Clemson wasn't putting up a ton of points, you're able to commit to the run and keep that balance on the offensive side of the ball. So you're able to see how both phases of the game really play into each other's hands in that way.
So let's close it up. I told y'all 25. We're about to hit 30, so I'm going to end it on this. The Auburn Tigers. Now, we have had some conversations back today, privately, when I was on over last word about Brother Hugh, as me and Craig would go back and forth talking about. Now, I said this last year, and we talked about this off the air. So this is no secret to you guys that last year I said if Peyton Thorne's good, Auburn could win 9 games. And I now said it about Jackson Arnold. And what I saw on Friday night was very encouraging. I thought the defensive backs got to get some work. I mean, they gave up. I know Sawyer Robinson can put some yards up, but still, you can't be giving up 400 yards passing. But I liked about Hugh Freeze was patient. He swallowed his pride. They ran the ball. And Jackson Arnold is a playmaker. He didn't hesitate when he needed to run. They threw it just enough for that game. They're going to do that more in the future. What's both of y'all's feelings about this Auburn team this season?
So I'm going to start because I am the biggest Brother Hugh hater out there. Even though I do think they're going to go 9-3, I do think Hugh has just grossly underachieved at Auburn. To me, Auburn should be a perennial college football playoff contender. They should be right up there in the SEC, and the fact that they were 5-7 the last 2 years is just downright unacceptable. But what I saw on Friday night in Waco was what I think Auburn fans have been waiting for. You saw a quarterback that could run what Jackson had over almost 140 yards rushing. The passing was still suspect, but that's okay because, I mean, to me, you've got Singleton and Coleman, probably two of the best wide receivers and the two of the best weapons out there. So as Arnold gets more comfortable and those defenses start to crowd the box, those two guys should be able to help Jackson with his throwing. But at the end of the day, one of the things I talked to Rob about was Brother Hugh committed to the run on Friday night. Even when it became a little bit of a track meet with Baylor, he kept running the ball. He wasn't trying to sling the ball all over the place. And that is something that Hugh did time and again, where he never got comfortable. He never really committed to the run. So to me, if he can keep up that and Jackson can take care of the ball and find Singleton and find Coleman consistently, Auburn should be a 9 or 10 win team. That's a big if, because I still, at the end of the day, are we going to get the Hugh Freeze that was Ole Miss, or are we going to get this guy that was 5-7 throwing his guys under the bus? If he has it last week, I think we'll be okay.
I also picked Auburn to be 9-3 this year, and I was really impressed. I'll let you guys know as well. As much as Craig's a hater, he listed Auburn as his most impressive SEC team coming out of Week 1. So we've had a lot of positive things to say about them, to be quite honest with you. And when I look at Hugh Freeze, the reason that I'm so high on Auburn this year is because although I feel like he has kind of thrown some players under the bus, and I have questions about whether or not the locker room can stay together based on some statements that have come out of his mouth. At the end of the day, he has quarterbacks that have a lot of moxie and are going to get things done. And I'll be dang if we didn't see exactly that happen in Waco on Friday night. The way that Jackson Arnold was able to run the ball, I think he continues to develop as a passer. I thought he got pulled too early in Oklahoma last year. And I think that there's still a lot of talent there. I've said it before, I'll say it on here. He was playing with JV guys at Oklahoma last year, and so that really hindered his ability to not only develop, but he was also in a system that didn't fit him. So, I mean, the whole thing was just kind of a mess. But with Hugh Freeze, when I look at guys that have been, whether it's his quarterbacks at Liberty or Swag Kelly and Bo Wallace in Oxford, you got guys who maybe aren't the best runners, but they're going to put their head down and go get it. And they're just going to gut their way into something. And that's what Jackson Arnold looked like to me. And that tells me that he was right where he wants to be and set up for success on the Plains this year.
I'll say this. I'd say on the year that the Baylor game was probably the most important game on the schedule. You win there, you start to see some momentum. So next up, the most important games is the back-to-back at Oklahoma, at A&M. Auburn does not have to win both of them, but they need to split them before obviously Georgia's coming up on the schedule, coming to Auburn. That's key. I'll give my pick on that, and then if y'all want to say something, I can, and we'll close up this conversation. But I think they beat Oklahoma because Jackson Arnold's going to go back to Norman, and not that it was a bad ending. Just say, hey, this is who I am. Y'all didn't get the real Jackson Arnold, but I think they probably lose to A&M the next week just because we know how college football is. That emotional high that they're going to be on at Oklahoma, it's hard to get there 2 weeks in a row. But I kind of look at that as the next big point of the season for Auburn.
I say they go 2-0. So they're going to knock off Oklahoma because as much as I believe in Hugh Freeze and Auburn this year, I do not believe in Brent Venables in Oklahoma at all. The other thing is with Texas A&M, still not sure about Mike Elko. There's a lot of flowers going towards Mike Elko. But at the end of the day, they were still 8-4 last year. And until we can prove that we can count to 9 or 10 in College Station, they can keep their crazy dancing.
Yeah, I agree. with Craig. Do you have the spreadsheet in front of you, Craig? I can't pull it up because I'm on my phone, but
No.
I don't remember exactly how we picked that stretch. However, I agree that Auburn beats Oklahoma. I know that for sure. I can't remember if I picked them to beat A&M or not, but I also agree with Craig that I think A&M's probably 7-5, 8-4 type of team. Until proven otherwise, that's just where they're going to land. So, I think that Auburn is the better team. I think they have more talent, and we saw in week 1 again overreactions as they may be. I felt like that UTEP got a lot of pressure on Marcel Reed early and often, and so that gives me some cause for concern about what's going on with Texas A&M's offensive line, or does Marcel Reed just have happy feet?
And that was a good game last year, was it not, Phillip and Jordan here? That was
Yeah,
a close one, wasn't
overtime.
it? Yeah, I was going to say overtime one. Yeah, so to me that makes.
Yep.
That game gave Auburn fans hope going into Tuscaloosa.
Yep.
That they
Yep.
could get bowl eligible. That was the big thing with that one. And anyways, guys, this has been a lot of fun. I told y'all 25. We've gone 35. Look,
We knew it would happen.
Rob's parked on the side of the road. It's late for all of us. I appreciate you guys coming on. Where can people check out SEC Sunday Night? Remind the audience again where they can do that, and also where they can find you guys.
Yeah, so you can find us on X at SEC Sunday Night. Both of our profiles are linked there in the bio. You can also go to Chief Sports South Carolina on YouTube, or you can download the Chief Sports Network app if you happen to be in our area. The Chief Sports Network app is really great. It's going to give you access to all the shows in either podcast form or the YouTube form. It'll give you the live shows. There's also local stuff in the state of South Carolina with high school football scores and streams that you can get for a lot of schools actually in the state. So a lot of great partners on there for you to go and check out as well. But again, Chief Sports South Carolina on YouTube, at SEC Sunday Night on X, or you can go to Chief Sports Network on X as well. Chief Sports Net is a good way to find the network and be able to access everything that's there. We're affiliated with the Big Spur as well, so we're live on the Big Spur's X account, which is a 24/7 account for South Carolina. So you can find us in any of those places, but quickest and easiest is probably at SEC Sunday Night on X.
All right, sounds good, guys. Again, I appreciate the time, and I look forward when we get to do this again sometime down the road.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you.